Avikal, many people are asking me what is essence work, and maybe you have an offer to give here.
Yes. Okay. So first, I want to take away the word work and just talk about essence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because essence is essence, and then essence work is something different. So essence is, from the understanding of, from a spiritual perspective, essence is how being manifests in a universal way, but also specifically in each individual, in a unique way. So it is how we can recognize the presence of being that is in spirit, which is not an abstract presence, it's a very concrete presence that manifests through qualities, through particular ways to functioning in life. The image that sometimes is used to understand the essence is like, imagine that being is like a diamond and this pure light, and then as we throw some light to the diamond, this breaks into different colors, and these colors represent different qualities that being has and how they manifest in each one of us. And these qualities are like beauty, self-value, intelligence, compassion, love, will, strength, personal power, and so on. So this is, let's say, the perspective on essence from a very general, universal point of view. Now, the essence work is a particular understanding on how we can use the understanding, the spiritual understanding of essence in day-to-day life. Because it's useless to have a general understanding of spirit if then doesn't translate in a capacity to live spirit in day-to-day life. At least for me, it's completely useless. Yeah? So the essence work is a series of practices and of techniques, and also of ways of looking at our essence manifest in each one of us, that can help us to actually manifest spirit consciously and integrate truth in our day-to-day life. So when I look at essence work, what I see is a bridge. I actually really close my eyes and see a bridge, and the bridge is a bridge between the illusion of existing as a personality, so within a limited social structure, and the capacity to be fully who I am in spirit. Now, there is a bridge, which means that there is a connection between the personality and the full expression of my being, and I can walk on this bridge. I can actually move consciously from the personality all the way to spirit and back. So this bridge is what actually allows me to exist on all these levels at the same time. Spirit, personality, and the connection between spirit and personality. In this sense, the understanding of essence as a bridge is something, I don't know, for me is mind-blowing, and is also very revolutionary, because until probably not more than a couple of 100 years ago, most of mystical schools, they were rejecting personality as something wrong, that we had to destroy or go beyond. And there was a lot also of condemnation about the personality. And it doesn't really work. You cannot really find yourself if you condemn yourself, if you start by condemning yourself. So for me, the understanding of the bridge is what allows me, and I've seen it happening to a lot of people, allows each individual to really exist in a completely inclusive way, rather than in a way where there is exclusions of some parts of the self.
So how, I know you are part of the essence training in different, that happens in different places of the world, and what is actually happening in those training, and how can you as a student learn to be more in your essence, or yeah.
Okay. First of all, to call it a training, it's a strange word.
You're using the wrong questions all the time.
No, it's a strange word.
Yeah.
I understand it. It makes completely sense from a certain perspective, but from another perspective, it doesn't make any sense at all. It makes sense from the perspective of if I start considering every human being as an incredibly sophisticated musical instrument, then training is the right word. Because what I learn is to play myself. I really learn little by little through practice, through understanding, through sharing, through deepening into certain points of my personality and my structures. I really learn to know myself, but even more important, I learn to be myself. And that's how the symphony is created. The more I am myself, the more all the notes are included, and all the more the symphony comes up. Yeah? So in that sense, it's a training. At the same time, it's such a mystery that to even use the word training seems so reductive, because in fact you can never really train to be yourself. You can only discover who you are and be amazed all the time. Well, this is who I am. This is who you are. It's such it's basically living in a mystery, and you can't be trained for a mystery. The very definition of a mystery is that you can't be trained for it. It's just a mystery, you just surrender to it. So it's a very interesting dynamic also for each individual, this mixture of will, where you actually train and take steps and have understanding and use maps, and then the fact that constantly you recognize that all this is only a very minimal part of the mystery we are living in. And that's actually what I really love, because no matter how much I do, no matter how much I understand, no matter how many steps I take, there is always more. And it's much bigger than wherever I think I'm reaching. So the training has then the essence training has these two phases. On one level, we teach and open up a map of the territory which we call the essential domain, the domain of the qualities of being that manifest in each one of us. On another level, we continuously support people to travel into this map, remembering that the map is not the territory, that the territory is immensely bigger than the map. The map just gives you few points of reference, and that the territory is you. So the map becomes real only when it becomes personal. So the way we do it is that, specifically in the training that we do in Risk, but often also in other trainings around the world, I start with a few days on the inner judge. And the inner judge is that program within ourselves that has been created to control charge and discharge of energy in the system, which is the fundamental energetic phenomena that happens in every organism. I charge energy, discharge energy, and that's the way the organism keeps living. And by controlling the way I charge and discharge energy, I can control my survival, or at least I can try to control my survival. So the inner judge, the main job is to make sure that I survive day after day after day after day. And to do that, there are rules, there are values, there are things that are acceptable, things that are not acceptable, things that I'm supposed to do, things that I'm not supposed to do, ways that I'm supposed to be, ways that I'm not supposed to be, and so on. Yeah? This is clear?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The judge, yes? Yeah. So.
And it's good to look at that before you go into the essential domains.
Well, so before I move on the bridge, and I start trying to know myself in a way that is more real than my personality, I think it's very useful to know that there is inside a control agency that will do everything that is possible not to make me take that trip, not to make me take that journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, basically it's like having inside a couple of some authority figures which more or less coincide with our parents, that will say us, look, life is dangerous, don't go there, this is too much, it's better if you stay home, don't go with the women because they only want your money, don't go with men because they only want one thing from you, and then they leave you, Make sure that you don't mess up with your boss, because then otherwise you don't make any career, stay small, don't grow up, don't take too much responsibility, all this kind of stuff that we hear all the time. Yeah? So this is like a rubber band that keeps pulling us back. So we want to go on a journey of self-discovery, and there is an intensity, there is a passion, there is a decision, there is a very deep longing and need to be who I am, and yet there is this rubber band that pulls me back. Yeah?
Actually, I remember that I did my beginning of the essence journey without having done the super ego work, the inner judge work before. And every time I was making inquiry, I was basically inquiring with my inner judge.
Yes. Yes, because the inner judge evaluates all my moments, all my behaviors, all the things I say, all the things that I don't say, even all my thoughts, even all my feelings. I can be sitting here completely quiet, still, and not say anything. Inside keeps running that inner dialogue where there is one part that says something, another part that says something else, and there is a dialogue between the two, yeah, a back and forth. Yeah? So it's not necessarily acted out, it can be also simply, actually the majority of the time it is inside. Yeah? So if I'm not aware of this, I find this rubber band that pulls me back, but I don't know how to deal with it. Yeah? So when I start the essence work, for me it's absolutely fundamental to put that piece of understanding in place, so that people know that the fact that they have the impression that they don't change, the fact that they have the impression that they always make the same mistakes, the fact that they have the impression that they keep going back to certain kind of patterns in their life, is not a wrong impression, is a right impression.
Yeah.
And it's based on the fact that there is this control agency that no matter how far we go, is pulling us back.
Yeah.
So one can be also a meditator for 20 years. If you don't, and of course, there is the capacity to experience also very high states of consciousness, but on the day-to-day life, these states of consciousness do not translate in real changes in the way the person, for example, behaves. And this is an incredible understanding that has come through Osho and few other masters in the last 200 years. That meditation gives us access to real fundamental states of consciousness, which are vertical. But meditation does not immediately translate in integration of the states of consciousness in day-to-day life and in real transformations in the way we live and we behave. In fact, you find historically people that had very high levels of consciousness or as a capacity to recognize certain states, but they were homophobic, against women, in favor of slavery. So these states of consciousness that had nothing to do with the capacity to be a human being in the best expression of what it means to be a human being. Now, this is a revolutionary understanding that didn't exist 200 years ago. Was not, maybe a little bit was present in the Zen tradition, but even in Zen, the relationship between man and woman, for example, was definitely not a relationship where a woman had the same value of man. In fact, for hundreds of years, women could not become nuns. So this is what is happening in this moment on this planet, thanks to Osho, thanks to other masters, that they have brought these two levels, the horizontal level of manifestation of the personality and the vertical level of understanding of the states to really a cross point. And say, you need to travel on both these levels. It's not enough one or the other. And this is for me, is just like, I just love it. All my passion, gets on fire when I see, yes, it's not just, I sit there, my seventh chakra opens up, so fucking what? Yes, I become a very spiritual being, and then I go back home and I don't play with my kids. No, or I am jealous of my woman and I discard my jealousy because she's just a woman. So this is where essence becomes so rich, because by understanding the superego, the inner judge, and then by understanding the relationship between my personality, so the limitations and the illusion of existing as a separate individual in day-to-day life, and the way the qualities of being manifest in each one of us, I create that bridge between the states and the levels of my development, my evolution. Okay?
And then maybe some people would like to know, but what are you doing in those groups? What does it look like?
Sure, sure. What they look like, okay. So, at the beginning of this journey, I put in place certain criteria that we use through this whole journey. The first one is what we call practicing presence. So the first requirement that is necessary to journey is that you are there, you are present, because otherwise, who is doing the journey? So one big part of these processes is to learn how to be present, is to really recognize, now I'm present, oh, I haven't been present for the last 2 hours, I was lost somewhere in the past, in the future, but I was not present. So we'll teach people on a very practical level that they need to be able to stay in their bodies. And what does it mean to stay in the body? How to stay in the body? How to use the body to stay in the body, and how to use awareness to stay in the body. So this is one of the things that happen in these groups: exercises, meditations, breathing techniques, inquiries, how to stay present in the body.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is, once that you are present, then you must have a real desire to know the truth and to understand the truth. They are not exactly the same thing. To know the truth sometimes is very easy. You simply have an intuition and you say, well, this is the truth of who I am in this moment. For example, I am joyous, or I am angry, or I am lost. So I might have an intuition and a recognition. But then comes the question of understanding. Understanding is, how come right in this moment I'm joyous? What makes me angry right in this moment? How come I feel content or happy or unhappy or I feel pain? So understanding, wanting to understand and wanting to know the truth, they kind of support each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? They're like two wheels, yeah? And they continuously support each other. And they also make the understanding of the truth and the truth of understanding deeper.
Mm-hmm.
So this is another thing where we use inquiry. Inquiry is the fundamental tool that we use, which is basically asking yourself questions. But it's not just asking yourself questions. You also need to learn to ask the right questions.
Mm.
So there is also a learning about, okay, in this specific situation, what is the most appropriate questions that I can ask myself to really understand my experience in this moment.
And can you give an example of a question you could ask yourself?
There are millions, but I can ask myself, for example, in this moment, how do I feel right in this moment?
Mm.
Yeah? And I can go inside, and I can start by sensing my body. So how does my body feel in this moment? Okay, in this moment I feel warm, I feel comfortable, I feel at ease, I feel connected, and I can ask myself, well, how come in this moment you're feeling of this? So then I can look around and say, well, I'm sitting with two people that are my friends. I am in a room where there is an atmosphere that is supporting me. I have all the space that I want to be myself. Then of course the result of all this is a state of well-being. Yeah?
Okay. Yeah.
But I'm not asking myself why I'm experiencing this.
Yeah.
Because the why is actually a very slippery question.
Yeah.
Yeah? Because if I really want to know the why, I will have to be able to completely unveil the mystery, which is impossible.
Mm.
There are too many elements that in this moment, on top of what I described, they are contributing to this situation for me to be capable to say why.
Mm.
So the why is a question that we do not ask.
Mm.
Not only we do not ask, but I personally believe that it's a complete waste of time to ask yourself why.
Mm.
Yeah? But I can ask myself how, yeah, and what. So inquiry is a lot about what and how. What is happening and how it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Now, the what and the how, they have to do with this moment. There's also a very big difference with the why. The why has to do with the past, but the what and the how has to do with this moment. So inquiry is a way of asking question that can only happen if I am present, if I'm here. And that's where the two things come together. Practicing presence and seeking the truth and understanding, through inquiry, they find a common ground. And on top of that, you cannot really ask questions if you're not curious about yourself and about life. And curiosity is just an expression of love. So in inquiry, there are not only awareness is involved, not only attention is involved, but love is involved. And I don't know any other technique that has the capacity to bring together in such a clear, simple way love and awareness. And it's dynamic, and it's alive, and it's full of surprises. And of course, often takes us in unknown territories. So that's something that in the training also you learn. Now, in the beginning, inquiry starts very close home, so you start from what you already know about yourself. And the more you do inquiry, the more you start little by little opening up parts of yourself that maybe you have a memory or an intuition or that you smell but that you don't really know. And the more you travel, the more you go into unknown territories. So inquiry becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and more impossible to predict.
Yeah, I remember there's some stages that I have thought there was not existing words for, and I found a way to talk about them, and that made it easier to be and contain that kind of status.
Yes. Yes. And of course, in inquiry, there is also another aspect which is very strong, possibly the strongest part of inquiry, which has to do with exposing yourself. Because when you do inquiry, you really do inquiry, and you go into things that you don't know or that you have been hiding for years, to really communicate them takes courage. So in the training, there is a lot of attention about supporting each other in this capacity to expose yourself, feeling that you will not be attacked, not only from your inner judge, but also from others people judge. So there is a fundamental agreement about respect and about not interference, which is a big support in the trainings. Then on a more practical level, each segment of the training involves a particular aspect of being. So, for example, the way we do it here in Denmark is that we start with the white essence, which is the essence of will and clear intention, and then we move to the red essence, which is the strength and vitality and courage, and then we move on. So each time that we meet, we don't look at essence in general.
No, it's very specific.
We focus on a very specific aspect because we want to go in depth into it. So we don't want to stay too much in general on the map, you know. And so each time we deal with different issues in the personality that are related to that specific quality, different wounds related to the fact that we have disconnected when we were children from that specific quality, and different resources, how to reconnect with those qualities. For example, I just give an example for all of them. Yeah? For example, when we do the white essence, we work with a fundamental issue, which is a belief that I have found no matter where I work. I work in India, I work in Russia, I work in Italy, I work in Denmark. No matter where I work, there is a belief that it's necessary to go through life through effort. Life is an effort. If you really want to have what you want to have, if you really want to be what you want to be, you need to effort. This is an absolutely general belief. It manifests in different ways, of course. Of course, an Italian will effort in a different way than a Danish or a Russian. You know? But this belief that life is an experience of effort, you know, is absolutely general. So we look into this belief and say, well, how come no, we go through life with the idea that I have to effort? Is it true? Where do I get this belief? And what happens if I stop efforting. Now, if we look into this whole issue of efforting, something comes up very clearly, which is that there is a conviction in the person that life is something separated from me, and that my will and the will of life, they are not aligned. I have to try to impose my will on reality. Because if I don't do that, I will not get what I want, I will not have success, I will not reach my goals, and so on. Yeah? So basically this tells us that each person, each one of us, lives in a state of conflict. Conflict between this individual and all the rest. Yeah? Because you are life in this moment, Palashidla is life in this moment, the light outside of the window is life in this moment, the floor is... So I live in a state where basically you might be an enemy, you might be an enemy, this might be something I really have to push against, you know, the light, I don't know if I like... So there is a state of tension and paranoia that pretty much every individual experiences, you know. For some people is pathological. Some people wake up in the morning, and this is actually very diffused in this moment on this planet, wake up in the morning, the first thing that they feel and sense in their mind is, oh my God, the day is going to be hard. And it's not by chance that in this moment on this planet the most sold pharmaceutical is an antidepressant. Because if I wake up in the morning and immediately life is an enemy, of course I am depressed. How could it be different? So, for example, we start looking into this belief, and we start looking if we were born with that belief, if that belief is a real substance, or if there are other reasons that we are not aware of that create that belief and create that conflict. And it's not difficult to come to the realization that basically we have eaten and digested that belief, and now we think that that's the truth because of lack of support in our childhood. So the belief that I need to effort is based on an experience, an infantile experience of not receiving support. Which means that I had to struggle. Not only I had to struggle, but I was told that it was important that I struggle. And so on. And if we keep inquiring into it, we can, of course, this inquiry is not painless. Sometimes strong feelings and memories of childhood come up, and we process them, the individual moves through this, and little by little what happens is that something might start manifesting from inside, which is what we call the white essence, or the essence of true will, which is a relaxed confidence, a trust that first of all, I am alive, I exist, and second, that I have the capacity to go through life, meeting the challenging of life without going paranoid, without projecting that kind of catastrophic expectation. But little by little learning, okay, I can take one step at a time. You know, I can take care of myself, I can support myself, you know, I can give support to other people. So I learn literally to support myself moment after moment after moment after moment. And the more I support myself, the more I feel centered, the more I feel grounded, the more I feel, yes, I'm existing, I'm here, I'm present, I can breathe, I can feel my body, I can hear what's happening, I can see around myself, I can express who I am. And this is a process. Sometimes it is a process. It takes all life actually. Because there is never end to the possibility of supporting oneself. So this is one way we move, in the training, and so there is that linking personality and structures in the personality, issues in the personality, what we call normally problems, with the capacity to see what is behind what we call problems. What is the quality of essence that I disconnected from, that is being translated in all these years in this is a problem.
Yeah. Mm. So some people ask, is it a course for everybody? And normally we say here that it's good to have been doing some basic therapeutic work before. Do you agree in that, or how do you see that?
I think it's good to have some background, a little bit of, at least a little bit of meditation, maybe some therapy.
Mm.
But the more I do this work, the more I also see that it's not strictly necessary.
Mm.
And the reason why I say that is because personally, but also I know other teachers, as I have moved away from the way I have learned this work originally 15 years ago, and more I have integrated Osho's approach into the work, the more this work has become available. Because by using, for example, Kundalini meditation, dynamic meditation, and other meditations, those techniques open up what we do in a much easier way than as in the traditional diamond work like Almas or Faisal proposed them.
Yeah, yeah.
So in that sense, I have seen also recently in Russia people that had hardly any experience at all. And of course the process was strong, but they were capable to stay present and to receive and process a lot of experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can imagine that in maybe in a few years it's going to be even easier for people that also people change, the people that approach the work now, they're not the same people that used to approach it 40 years or 30 years ago. Like recently in Russia, I had some very young kids, probably like there were at least 5 or 6 that were between 19 and 22, 23,
Wow.
and they seem to be at ease, not only at ease, but actually ready to jump in. Because the mind of young people now and the way they relate to themselves is also the result of 40 years of evolution in spirituality. And evolution in spirituality in the last 40 years has been incredibly fast. So,
that's interesting to hear.
Yeah, I think pretty much nearly everybody could come in.
Yeah. So
with an exception, which is pathological states that have to do with borderline situations.
Yeah.
This in that case, this work is too intense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. So, thank you.
My pleasure.